Good morning. How is everybody this morning? It is so good to see you and to see some faces that I haven't seen in a while. I can't help but think about those who are not here as well. I think about those that we have lost. I think about those that have lost loved ones. I think about those that are shut in at home. And I think about how challenging this year has been. As a matter of fact, I was on the phone yesterday with BJ and Stephen Vaughn. And we were texting back and forth. Don't you love and miss them so much? And we were talking about the year and what has just really happened through the year. But we were also talking about that I would be preaching this morning. And I believe it was BJ that says, "And I love your beard." Which I replied, I think it's time maybe to cut it off. I've been growing it for a while. We've had a lot of fun with it. I did my big tour last night to all the homes, and I think it might be time to cut it off. Which Stephen joined in and said, "No, you have to ask yourself, WWCHD. I thought for a minute. He goes, "What would Charlton Heston do?" And then they requested that I would wear a Moses robe as I preached this morning. I couldn't find one. We're glad you're here. And, it's the day after Christmas, and you stand, or you really are in one of two camps. And I want you to think about this with me for a second, okay? You're in one of two camps. Either you're holding on to Christmas as long as you can. You still want to watch Christmas movies tonight. You still have places to visit. You still have gifts you want to give. You still have gifts that you want to receive. You want the lights to stay on. You turn them on every chance you get. You want all of the decorations to stay up. You live in that camp, or you're so ready for this to be over you can't see straight. As a matter of fact, last night after all the gifts were open, you started picking up the ornaments off the tree and putting them away. You're like, finally, it's time to get back to normal. It's time to get back to the order that we had prior to all of this. I'm so tired of seeing It's a Wonderful Life on TV. It's time. You live in one of two camps, don't you? Well, the truth is that some of us come together, and all of us have some pieces of this that we work on together, no matter which camp you live in. All of us think about the year's conclusion and what it's meant. All of us think about, did we do a good job of giving gifts and appreciating those that we love? All of us think about, how am I going to pay for all those gifts that we gave for those that we appreciate and we love? But the truth is, Christmas isn't joyful for everyone. I heard this week, and I've never known this before. Did you know that there is what they call a blue Christmas a few days before Christmas, where they will put blue lights up? I believe it's on December 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. And it's for those people who have lost loved ones and really find that Christmas can be depressing. I think it's important that we acknowledge that not everyone finds as much joy in Christmas as some of us do. It's the day after Christmas. I think some are ready for it to be over, while I think others wish it would continue. No matter which camp you live in, I believe there's one thing that we can, again, come together and really think about. and that's this. I think we can inventory our blessings. I think we can think about the ways that God has blessed us. And I also think about this. I think each and every one of us can think about what ways can we bless others this coming year. It's a great time to conclude the year and to be excited about a new. I love the book of Colossians. You can see that from where we started this morning. Paul is full of positivity, excitement, and really a love for Christ. Maybe that's where it all begins. And so this morning, what I thought we would do is look at where does everything really start? Where does everything start? C.S. Lewis wrote this, and I decided to pick a C.S. Lewis quote in honor of Scott Sager this morning. The central Christian belief is that Christ's death has somehow put us right with God and given us a fresh start. Don't you enjoy fresh starts? Aren't you thankful for fresh starts? Aren't you thankful for try or do-overs? What if we truly use Christmas to think about how much God has loved us when we truly were unlovable? What if we really used the new year to think about new steps, new hopes, new plans, fresh starts in relationship with Christ? I think we see that in the letter of Colossians, and that's why I chose it this morning. Paul speaks of us being in the kingdom of the Son he loves, meaning that Christ, in his love, he has equipped us with the Holy Spirit, with a freshness, a newness. We have become new creatures. We have become fully engulfed in forgiveness and the blood of Christ. Paul reminds us of this, guys. It all starts with God. So if you don't mind, can I just take a few minutes for us to go back to the basics? Can we just go back to the basics for a minute and let me remind you of how truly blessed we all are? It all starts with God. Listen again to Colossians chapter 1. There in verse 13 through 18, I appreciate Nathan reading it this morning for me, but I want to reemphasize it as we reread it. For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves, in whom we have redemption and the forgiveness of sins. The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation, for in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things. It doesn't say some things. All things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything, he might have supremacy. So as we've concluded Christmas, as we've turn that page. And as we look forward to a new year, let's remember it all starts with God. And let me remind you of a few things we find here in Colossians. First, creation starts with God. Paul acknowledges God as the creator of all things, the maker of heaven and of earth. So think with me for a minute of the things that you've seen on this earth. What about a beautiful sunset with all its hues of red and orange? God created it. What about the ocean and the beach as the waves come rolling in and the colors of the ocean, the blue and the aqua and the greens and the brown? God created it. Have you ever been to the Grand Canyon before? I remember standing on the south edge of the Grand Canyon there at the Welcome Center and being in amazement of this unbelievable creation. Oh, by the way, God created it. I really enjoyed that a lot until one of the people I was with decided to go into the gift store and buy a book titled Death at the Grand Canyon, which he proceeded to read to me at every stop. It was not as much fun after that. God created it. What about as you see a deer maybe in a field jump over a fence? It seems effortless. God created it. What about squirrels that are playing with each other? And God created it. Everything you see, God created. What about the beautiful babies that we have here in our midst? God created them. What did God not create? Romans chapter 1, there in verse 20 it says, "For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power, his divine nature has clearly been seen, being understood from what he has made." It all starts with God. He created it. But not only did God create it, not only is he the builder, the architect of creation, as we said a little earlier, life starts with God. Two things that Paul says in our reading to go along with that. Everything starts with God, and all things are held together because of God. If that is true, if God is the beginning of life, and if God holds all things together, that must mean that he has purpose in our living. If God has purpose in our living, then he has a purpose for your life. Let me ask you this question. Have you found your purpose? Do you know your purpose that God has for your existence? Why are you here? When you find your purpose in life, I think you'll find four things. When you find what God has really meant for you, I think you'll find four things. I think you'll find peace. Grace and peace to you from God our Father. The word in Hebrew is shalom. It means much more than just peace. It means more than a truce. It's more than tranquility. It's not just calm. It isn't just order. It goes beyond harmony. True peace passes understanding. It's such a gift to us that we can't even understand it. But have you experienced it? Have you been in a situation where you didn't think you could hold it together, but somehow you did? Have you been in front of the coffin and you didn't think you could hold it together, but God gave you something more than you thought you had? Have you experienced a loss in job and you didn't think you could hold it together, but God gave you something more than you thought you had? Have you struggled through relationship? The difficulty of relationship, and God gave you something more than you thought you had? You see, true peace passes understanding. And when you find your purpose in life, you find peace. But not only do you find peace, you find deliverance. For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves. You see, he has liberated us. He's released us. He's freed us. He's rescued us. He's been our ransom. He's given us salvation. And he's provided for us redemption. Aren't you thankful that we have been delivered? Not only do you find peace, not only do you find deliverance, but thank goodness you have forgiveness, in whom we have redemption and the forgiveness of sins. Webster defines forgiveness as this: to stop feeling angry towards, to stop blaming, to stop requiring payment. Isn't it amazing that Christ freely gave himself to become the sacrificial lamb for the sins of humanity for all times? Isn't it amazing? Now, the one thing about forgiveness that you have to do, you have to accept it. Think about this. Yesterday, as you started opening gifts, what if there was one gift under the tree that you didn't open? What good would it be? Maybe decoration. But how could you truly enjoy the gift if you never open the gift? How many times do we struggle accepting forgiveness? How many times do we struggle forgiving ourselves? When you find your purpose, what you find is forgiveness. Open that gift. Don't leave it under the tree. Forgive yourself as Christ has forgiven you, as the Lord has forgiven you. It starts with God. Not only do you find forgiveness, not only do you find deliverance and peace, the last thing that I think you'll find when you really find your purpose, is reconciliation. Christ reconciles people to God and to each other. He puts back together things that are broken. I love this from Romans chapter 5, verse 10. For if, while we were God's enemies, we were reconciled to him through the death of his Son, how much more, having been reconciled, shall we be saved through his life? So the things I'm reminding you of this morning is it all starts with God. Creation started with God. Life starts with God. And the church starts with God. I'm so frustrated with a generation that wants to give up on the church because they misunderstand its purpose. I'm frustrated with people that want to put the church in a box and define it only by its worship style. It's so much more than that. The church starts with God. He created it as a great gift for you and for me. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 19 through 22 says, so then you are no longer strangers or aliens, but you are fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God, built on the foundation of the apostles and the prophets, Christ Jesus himself being the cornerstone, in whom the whole construction being joined together grows into a holy temple in the Lord. In him you also are being built together into a dwelling place for God by the Spirit. You see, God created the church so you could belong, so you'd have a family, so you wouldn't be a stranger, so that God could dwell amongst you and in you. So are you weary? Are you tired from the holidays? Are you worn out from family and friends who have visited? Are you tired from the amount of time you spent preparing your home or spent preparing in the kitchen? Are you worried about the new year? What will 2022 bring? Why don't we let Christ give us a fresh start? Creation starts with God. Praise and thank him for it. Your life starts with God. Ask him, what is your purpose? The church starts with God. Serve him and trust him to bless the church. Everything starts with God. Church, let me ask you a simple question. Will you allow your new year to start with God? I love you. If there's anything we can do for you, if we can pray for you in a situation that you're dealing with right now, if we can celebrate a victory or mourn a loss, that's why we're here. Why don't you come while we stand and sing?